There is one key factor that I don't see the media covering with regard to the protests in LA and the deployment of the National Guard. Let's talk about that. I'm Steve Sandford, you're watching Dominion Report. The Trump administration has been using ICE, that's Immigration Customs Enforcement, to abduct people, imprison them without due process, and in some cases deport them to a human-rights-violating super prison in El Salvador. Now, these apparent ICE officials are showing up in unmarked vehicles, wearing combat gear and masks, and without any identification. They are abducting people from their homes, from their places of work, from universities, from bus stops. They have arrested people outside courthouses where they are scheduled to attend immigration hearings. They have arrested those people's families. They're also arresting people at ICE facilities who have simply shown up for their routine scheduled immigration check-in. Now, they're claiming that these people are illegal immigrants and violent criminals. However, there is no way to verify this, as those people's right to legal representation and to present evidence in front of a judge or a jury of peers has been blatantly ignored. Some people who are not white are now hiding in their homes. Children are not going to school for fear of being abducted, or that their family will be abducted before they get home. People who would otherwise be working, would be participating in society and paying taxes, are now not doing that. This has been going on since nearly the beginning of Trump's second presidency. More recently, there were a few incidences where citizens have blocked the contingent of apparent ICE officials. They literally stood between them and their target building, and they were able to successfully turn them away when they came to abduct people in their communities. By some kind of complete coincidence of timing, I am sure, just a few days after Trump and Elon Musk had a very public divorce via social media, apparent ICE officials conducted a series of massive raids in Los Angeles, in the very democratic state of California. Protesters assembled, including around federal immigration buildings. Now, if you look up the guidelines in the policing publications on dealing with protesters and keeping them from turning violent, they use the exact tactics in those guidelines that are not recommended. It's as if they were trying on purpose to generate a violent reaction from anti-abduction protesters. Then, when those protests turned violent, Trump federalized and mobilized the California National Guard without it being requested by the state governor. In fact, Governor Gavin Newsom specifically requested that the National Guard not be deployed, and after they were deployed, has since insisted that they be withdrawn. To bypass the governor's authority over the California National Guard, Trump has utilized the Insurrection Act. Trump has suggested that the governor should be arrested and has threatened escalation of the situation to include the possible use of a United States military against American citizens. The California Attorney General has categorized Trump's federalization of the National Guard as unlawful, and Governor Newsom has said that the state will be suing the administration for their, what he calls, unauthorized use of National Guard. That's a quick summary. That's where we're at. And there's a lot more to say about the situation, including the situation so far, and plus also the story is still developing. So there will be lots more to come. But I want to talk about the history of National Guard deployment, and perhaps we can put some of this current situation into context. I haven't heard yet any mainstream or legacy media exploring this part yet. In the last 100 years, and not counting assistance with natural disasters, the National Guard has only been deployed on 12 occasions. Of those 12, only 2 of them were scenarios where it was against the direct specific request of the local governor. And what were those 2? Well, in 1957, Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus actually utilized his own National Guard to block black children from entering schools. And now this was just a couple years after the famous Brown versus Board of Education case, where the Supreme Court ruled that schools be desegregated. President Eisenhower federalized the Arkansas National Guard, taking control of it from the governor, and then ordered them to enforce the anti-segregation laws. In what's now known as the Little Rock 9 incident, 9 black students were escorted to their school by members of the National Guard and also members of the 101st Airborne Division. In the second incident, in 1965, peaceful, unarmed civil rights protesters in Alabama were attacked by armed police while attempting to cross a bridge. Protesters were tear gassed, and they were beat, in some cases, to unconsciousness. This kicked off a series of subsequent protests in the area. Governor George Wallace did nothing to rein in local police and to protect the peaceful protesters. President Lyndon Johnson federalized the Alabama National Guard, and on the third protest march, dispatched them to protect the protesters and their right to peaceably protest. Both of these events are now seen as major turning points in civil rights. In both cases, they ended up making the United States a little more free and a little more just. What is happening now in Los Angeles is not that. In fact, it is the opposite. The entire point of this situation is a power grab. The president has no more power than when the Insurrection Act is declared. That's what they wanted, and that's what they've got. None of this can be surprising. In fact, it was quite predictable. It's written down in the Heritage Foundation's publication called Project 2025. I'm working on a separate video, and that one will show how Project 2025 outlines the activities that we're seeing now, and also it will show what is expected next and what we should be expecting next. Once that video is published, I'll put a link in the comments below. In the meantime, stay calm, stay strong, and elbows up.